This is the Allied Esports Campus Connect, where we break down how colleges are turning passion for gaming into real careers. Every episode, we highlight a school that's building real pipelines, broadcast, production, STEM, player development, the whole ecosystem. Today, we're featuring Boise State Esports, joined by the man behind it, Dr. Chris Haskell, head coach and director at one of the longest-running collegiate programs in the nation. Let's jump in. And I have a whole intro that I kind of do into this thing, so it's really good to head right into you. I'm here with the man from Boise State Esports, the longest-running collegiate program in the country, and the man behind it, Mr. Doc Chris Haskell. How you feeling, brother?
You bet. I'm good. But hey, there are programs that have been at it longer. That we're second wave. So we were brought up by AJ Dimmick at Utah, Mark Deppie at UCI, Kurt Melcher at Robert Morris, Dan Clark at Maryville. There are a lot of folks who've been at it longer than we have, that we have learned from the start. Those are my OGs, and I would not be here without them.
Give us the origin story. When did Boise State formally stand up esports, and what was the initial mandate?
Well, I started it to do research. I didn't know that this was going to be. I've been a faculty member for a decade at Boise State. I've been teaching education in the College of Education, a lot of games and simulations and like master's level courses about how to use those in your classroom, and was researching for another talk I was going to give. I'm like, I'll just dig into clubs and esports and competitive gaming, and realized very quickly it was about to explode. There are about 30 to 35 colleges back then that had it, and the ones that I just mentioned, and folks like Glenn Platt at Miami, Ohio, all of them were just open books and gave me a ton of info. And I kind of made the realization, like, oh, this is gold rush era. If we get in now, if we get in big, if we can tell this story well and sell this story, we could probably build a program here that, as our president at the time said, could be the Alabama of esports, Alabama being the top football program at the time. So that was the rallying cry on campus, like, let's do this. It didn't take long for me to realize that they were going to keep me connected to it. It wasn't just an idea I sent up the chain. They needed someone to execute it. And I had done all the research, so I did it. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that I, at that time, was a clinical associate professor. I'd been climbing the ranks. I stayed on the clinical side because then you don't have scholarship mandates. You don't have to publish X number of times per year and in certain journals only. You can do, I could do the stuff that I was doing, right? Research into Minecraft, teaching classes in Second Life, and I mean, we probably do it in Roblox today, or Fortnite Creative or one of those. But and I started the program while teaching courses. Very quickly, it became obvious, like, oh, this is 2 full-time jobs for one person just in esports. Teaching classes, I'm going to have to, go, no go. And my dean at the time said, I think you're a head coach. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I had to surrender my rank at the university. That's a big deal for an academic. I have a PhD. And to go from, essentially tenure track, clinical is, parallel to tenure, and to just become a staff member, to go from working 9 months to working 12, right? It was a big leap at the time. There were times I'm like, what am I doing? I am confident now that, it was the right decision. I am very fulfilled, right? Doing this gig. Love it. Love the relationships that we get to build with students as we recruit them, as they come in, as we struggle and succeed, and then as they graduate and become the next, they level up themselves and do the next thing. This is infinitely more rewarding than just cycling classes.
What were some of the early bets you made on facilities, staffing, and broadcast? What did you get right, and what did you get wrong?
So the first thing we had to do was we had to bet on games. We had to bet on which titles were going to be good. Now, Rocket League has always been the gateway drug to esports, because grandma will understand who's winning and how to win, right? I mean, it's the most straightforward. Now, all the complexity is in what happens mechanically after that and mentally after that. But we bet big on that game early. We also bet on Overwatch early. But there were a couple games that did not last for us. And those bets, I don't think they were busts, but Hearthstone, TESPA back in the day, this is 8 years ago. TESPA had a big Hearthstone tournament. TESPA was still TESPA. For those who are young and don't know that, Blizzard had a collegiate scene that they bought from the Rosen brothers, essentially, and Billy Sprout and that crew, that were all from the Texas Arlington campus, and came over to Irvine, California, to Blizzard, and ran it there for many years. Hearthstone was part of that. Heroes of the Storm was part of that. Heroes of the Dorm was their big, push and tournament, and those were early bets that we made. We loved having teams in those. We were pretty successful in Hearthstone. That's not on me. That's on the 3 players that happened to be on campus and were connected. It was it was an interesting format. You had to have 3 players, but they all talked about basically one deck and one hand, right? It was a strange format to try to include lots of people instead of just single players. And we bet big on League of Legends, which has always been a great game, but it has had a diminishing high school player base for quite some time. So it's harder for us to recruit. Now we're back in that game again now, but we did end up taking, I think, 3 or 4 years off from it. So those were some of the big early bets.
What's the Doug Haskell philosophy for blending varsity, club, and campus engagement?
We've kind of settled in Collegiate Esports to what I describe as the big 4, right? Overwatch, Rocket League, Valorant, and Smash. And Smash hasn't always been a great online competitive game. They've really picked it up in the last 2 years, and we've found a way to make it a compelling story, at least compelling until we get to the LAN, right? And then it really takes off. So, but those are the big 4. We support other games at other times of the year, depending on the interest. We play CFB 25 or 26 because everybody in the Mountain West does, and we have a Mountain West championship in that game. We also support some of the fighting games when they're in vogue. Last year, Capcom did a great job with the Street Fighter 6 franchise and getting that out there. We have Guilty Gear players and Tekken players and Mortal Kombat players that are part of our groups on campus that we support while they compete in CFGC. I always screw those letters up, but the collegiate fighting games.
Can you give us an overview of the facilities you provide for your teams? How do you utilize them?
So, and I'll make sure you have a video. That you're showing right now. That's amazing. Our facility is a 7,000 square foot dedicated space that has we've had up to 100 PCs in here. We've slimmed it down to just under 60 and a bunch of consoles because that fits what we're trying to do with our footprint right now. It's the dedicated space for our varsity gaming program, and a lot of people we do intersect with curriculum, but esports is just like football or basketball. It is a university competitive program that is a stage, a vehicle for other departments to do things that they want. So engineering or computer science or communications, they'll do projects. They'll green light course interactions with what we do. But our job is to get our players ready, just like a football team, to take on UNLV or take on Colorado State or UNR, and ideally beat them, and to give our students that competitive opportunity to be some of the best in the nation, but as Boise State Broncos. So in our space here, We've got a battleground with about 40 PCs in it, and breakout team rooms that, with closed doors so that we can have those meaningful conversations. We've got a full broadcast spectator arena, about 60 seats in there, all theater seats, right? Like you'd go to the movies in. Elevated stage, lighting, full event. In fact, we sell out a series of highlighted home games every year where every seat is full. It's pretty amazing. Of course, we have we're big into broadcast. We do about 30 to 40 hours a week of live content, both for ourselves and for our partners. We just got back. We sent a team to Washington, D.C. for the Commanders-Lions game, where we broadcast the USO, which is the supporting service members organization, the USO Salute to Service Madden tournament. And the winners of that got Super Bowl tickets, but we were the broadcast team for that. They brought in FDOT and User were the casters, but we were the broadcast agent for that. And we've got a number of partners like that, and we get to do a bunch of those types of shows. So because of that, we have a full control room and multiple broadcast locations, including a studio. We didn't set out to be a broadcast as a primary, pillar of what we do, but we did know early on, so the news will do like one thing about you, and the paper will do one thing about you a couple times a year, max. So we have to be in charge of our storytelling. And Garvey Candela at Twitch at the time and Kevin Hong, they were both Twitch student and Twitch University. They were quick to get us partnered and get that going. But we had to learn these things, from watching other broadcasts and going, oh, okay, they've got a second camera. I think we need a second camera, right? Just genuinely learning from folks like Pete Eminger, who was longtime broadcast director for Blizzard and Overwatch Studio, the Overwatch Arena there in Burbank. We just learned from watching and have tried to emulate all of that vocabulary.
Besides players, what are some roles within Collegiate Esports that you teach?
We have about 35 student employees, which fill roles all the way from the ones that you would see on camera, casters on the desk, right? An analyst, all the way through the control room, technical directors, replay directors, post-production, pre-production specialists, graphic artists, observers. Observing is something that we take very seriously and teach as an art, right? Of how to manipulate cameras in game to tell the story that we want. We also have folks who do a fair amount of social media specific editing. We do 2 to 4 shorts, reels a day based on our content, and that has to get edited. We've got folks that do research for us as well. We have player support. We call them equipment managers, but if you're coming in to play a 6 o'clock start and your class gets out at 5 o'clock, if we're doing it all right, we've got a student who's got your setup, has already reverted the monitor from the crazy Valorant setup, the squish back to normal and the vibrancy is gone. They've reset your PC knowing that you're coming in to play this game at 6, so you don't have to mess with it. They're setting up player cams. They're making sure the comms are working ahead of time, and making sure the players are ready to go so the time on task is maximized, right? They're not fiddling around with stuff. They're replacing chairs with broken wheels. They're managing the equipment for these players. Those are a bunch of the big roles. We also have some that do just clerical stuff, making sure that things are in our campus calendar, and people are invited. They do event and promotion, some interface with the sales process, and event planning process. Some are just TOs. We've got students coming in tonight to TO specific Smash tournament that we're doing, and yeah, Those are all things. One of the things that we don't do is we don't have player coaches. And people are like, well, why? That'd be such a great experience. It is. It's a great experience, but it's one that everyone is going to screw up. And we don't want to create a situation where peers are mad at each other, right? If we have somebody who's in a supportive role, then we limit the I guess the degrees of influence that they have over that. Yes, you're going to scout this map. Yes, you're going to pull our stats, but you're not going to criticize your friend, your roommate in some cases, right? That's just going to go bad, right? It has to be, because I screwed it up, because I let other people start. I let a diamond player critique a grandmaster, and that doesn't work, right? Because that even if there's a lot of trust in that situation, that criticism can't be from somebody who can't play at their level. Now, it shouldn't matter, but it does, right? It does. Even as I coach, I don't critique or offer criticism on the way they play the game. I critique around, hey, we took that fight and we didn't talk about ults once. We've made this clear. We got to talk about ults before we use them. It is your determination. If we have a disagreement on how we should play something, we're going to break that down and talk about it. We're going to get some expert, professional player coach, thoughts. I'm not going to tell them the right way or the wrong way to do that, but I'm going to engage them in the conversation about the right way and wrong way, get consensus, and then hold them to it, which I can do as a 54-year-old man, who's been coaching for a bit. And that is a really hard place for a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old to be in a game that they absolutely love and they want to coach, but they don't have the room in the same way. So we don't have them coach in that sense. We do have them support those players in some roles, but it's limited because most of the time the players at the station are the experts, right? They just need time to communicate around what they see and what they expect, and we've VOD review enough to recognize when we're making mistakes. But the key is for myself and the rest of our coaching staff, we've got a couple of game-specific coaches that are part of our in-person staff here. We just have to hold them accountable to what we've agreed to do, right? Because 5 acting as 1 is always the better strategy, even if one they think the win condition, but can't get everybody else to do it in the moment because they can't communicate it well enough or fast enough. And as a head coach, part of that role is that sometimes I have to be the bad guy, and just say, nope, we're not doing that. It wasn't that long ago. One of our teams was just, they were just overworked a little bit. They'd been on the grind for so long. And they just needed time away from each other. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep grinding, but they got days off. They weren't in trouble, but it was like, we're taking days off. We're dropping this event, and we're just taking days off. We need our mental back. When they were back, it was just a long weekend. They had time to do their laundry, catch up on their homework, call their siblings, and they came back and they were fresh, and we played well. So, yeah, sometimes you got to be the bad guy to give them what they need.
Walk us through Boise State's STEM offerings tied to esports. What majors and minors map to the program?
Okay, so let me give you just a hair of the lineage. It'll make sense. We started in the College of Education, which is where I taught because I had a classroom. I could start it there. The College of Innovation and Design was also very interested. They wanted to partner. So both of those colleges worked together at the very beginning of esports. They provided a little bit of startup funding. I had the space. It's part of my classroom. We made that the home base. After about a year and a half, 2 years, it moved fully into the College of Innovation and Design. They moved me out of education, and I became a faculty member in Innovation and Design, and in that process rolled over into a staff position from faculty. In that time, the goal was to graduate our program to athletics, which we did this year in July. This is our first year in athletics, and it's great. It's the athletics culture here on campus is amazing. So that process of being connected to an academic college meant that we're constantly interfacing with other colleges. So communication, great example, great partnership. We're reaching out to the students who are moving through the program, finding out people who are interested in being on camera, finding out people who are, and we're just offering them work, right? We're offering them practical experience in the same way athletics does if they're going to go broadcast a soccer match, right? Those are student employees who've been elevated to cast and to produce and to operate cameras, and they all kind of come out of communications. It's not a class, but it's an employment opportunity related to their field, right? And so that's a common connection. Computer science, and every year we hire a number of computer science and coding folks to do some of the simple projects that we have, right? I say simple, right? But a core belief of ours in helping prepare our students is holding them accountable to playing the game at the highest possible level. 20 hours a week, 24 weeks of contact is our personal mandate. We don't extend beyond that because that is what the NCAA would expect of softball, right? Can't be more than 20 hours a week. Can't be more than 24 weeks of the year that you're directly working with the students on this thing. But they got to play the game. 10 to 12 hours a week is when then they're in the facility. There's another 8 hours they need to be grinding the game. So computer science folks helped code for us, listeners and scrapers, so that we can track, hey, this student hasn't played for 3 days. We'd better jump on a call. What's going on? How are things going? Oh, you're sick. Oh, okay. Well, let's take you out of the scrim tonight so you can get some rest. Let's get you healthy again. And or you're behind in a class. Okay, well, let's double down on that. We want them playing the game at the highest level that they can, right? We expect them to be in competitive. There's certain times of the year where that's better than others, right? We're in a 6-man's lull right now in Rocket League. It's more 2s now than it's been 3s. And we're seeing that. So but we have to be able to track it. And it takes a computer science student to be able to help us pull from the API at ball chasing to get actual good stats and numbers. How many games a week? How many focused efforts are these students playing? And are we in a good place with the game, right? What's the relationship with the game? Because also if somebody changes their relationship with the game and it goes on for a little bit, it's a good signal that they're ready to move to a different role outside of player. No player really knows when to stick their landing. It's very rare that they pick the right time. Most of the time, I have to tell them when their last college game is going to be so that we can celebrate them and they don't fizzle out. TS students help us do that. And there are a number of other roles like that, engineering, art, that we just interface with. And we find opportunities that they can solve things that we need solved in our environment that gives them practical experience. Occasionally, I've got a few in my inbox right now, senior projects that want to do this or that, classes that want to come visit, classes that want an enrichment experience that they want to put on their assignment list to come to one of our home games. We'll take that, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a lot of where we connect to your language, back to the STEM of the university and the coursework. But the other place that we connect is with the culture of the university of competition, right? Just like in football or basketball, we're promoting our games and our wins and our successes across campus, and that uplifts the student body.
If I'm a prospective student, what does my first semester look like?
Well, so we see students in two ways. One is that we recruit them heavily. They're on the big recruiting board over there, and we've been tracking them for years. And we make an offer and we invite them to come. Then So there's that group, and their experience is, they're in hopefully early the week before. We matriculate a little bit. They come in. We have all of our meetings. We do big team events. We deliver the culture. We deliver the handbook. We compete together. We do all the stuff you would imagine at a training camp. Then once school starts, we open the doors for walk-on opportunities. And we get everybody here over the course of about 10 days, play a bunch of different games. We have a Rocket League night. We have Valorant night. And we look to build club teams and potentially find, diamonds in the rough. Folks that weren't on our recruiting board, that are Radiant. Radiant controller. That's the joke right now, because controller is a dead position for now. They just nerfed it so hard. But say, Radiant duelist, and we didn't know about them. They didn't really know how to get on our radar ahead of time. But here we are. We look for an opportunity to get a slot on one of the teams for that person. And so if you're moving into the dorms and coming over on week one and playing some games, there's an opportunity for you to keep playing. We'll stand up those teams. They don't get scholarships or coaching, but they do get organization and gear and a place to play, and they get some broadcasts, and we try to make it a great experience for them and let them develop in the games that they love. We have a lot of games that will come together just because there's a community that wants to play them, right? I mean, League of Legends this last week was, they were here, at midnight, starting the watch party of the finals, right? The big old community of folks to do that. That's not a recruited team for us. That's a club team, a well-supported club team, because we've got, Coach K, Kelsey Mosier, who was with, Evil Geniuses and 100 Thieves for over 10 years. So, we got to make sure that we've got a league community if we've got Coach K. So, I guess the point is, if you're recruited or you're on campus, we welcome those folks. We find opportunities for them to plug in. All of our players can play. Our students campus students can come in and play anytime we're open, which is 9-10 hours a day. And at no cost, right? This is just their space, right? You get to come in and hang out.
Over your 10-year history, what are some notable accolades and achievements you've accomplished?
Oh, made me talk about those. Well, let me say this first, that we are very blessed to have been in the Mountain West Conference. The Mountain West, starting with Carolyn Henry, has always been unbelievably supportive, and Justin Packard, and they started in our very first year. They stood up an event. I'm pretty sure that it was over at the university in tandem with the basketball finals. We did an esports event there. We did Rocket League, Overwatch, and League of Legends. It was us that first year versus UNLV. And we won Rocket League. We should have won League, but didn't. And they had a killer Overwatch team that we fought for years to overcome and finally did. But the Mountain West has allowed us a platform for success to the tune of 13 conference championships in the different games, right? Many in Rocket League, 4 in a row in Overwatch, and 1 in Valorant, 1 in CFB 26. I think that's where it adds up. It's been phenomenal. That said, we have also been successful in other tournaments. And national championship is a wonderful phrase. It means different things to different people, right? We won a Play versus Overwatch and Madden title in the same year. We won a NACE Madden title in that same year, national championship. Wasey Williams, our Madden player. And we won a NACE Overwatch, title. Those are all national level. At the top of the tournament, you can't play any further. It doesn't lead anywhere else, and it's a national level tournament where lots of different schools play in it. It's not the publisher tournament, right? Because the publisher tournament has very different enrollment expectations, and we don't like those as much. There are colleges out there who paint pro players as students to kind of farm those paychecks, because a lot of them are big paycheck ones, and that is not a criticism of those, but we just don't prioritize those. It's not the best experience for our students. And then last year, the PEC, which is not a huge league, but is a national league, 2 titles in that. So we have 5 national championships and 13 Mountain West Conference championships, a total of 20 total conference championships if you count ECAC and some of those other ones. That said, that level of success is only meaningful on our campus to our students, right? While other people might, notice or admire it, it is only truly meaningful to our folks, and that's where all meaning has to be made. So if someone listening is from a university who doesn't have that experience, find what your experience is. Find what your conference could be. Play the other people in your traditional athletic conference. Find places where you can create your narrative of success, because it's not exclusive to us. Everybody can experience it. Truly.
You're a part of the Power Esports Conference. Tell us about it. What is its goal?
So, and all the credit goes to Joey Gariziak and Christopher Bilski from Syracuse, Michigan State, respectively. They came together with this idea. What if we put the football schools together? Now, I want to take a slight step back from that and help your listeners to understand. Maryville, St. Clair, fantastic programs, fantastic universities. If we have, not nearly as many times as they've beat us, but we've edged Maryville a couple of times, and it is a non-story, right? We beat UNLV, whether it's an up year or a down year, and that's a killer group of people. They have my heart. I mean, the Rebel Gaming, I just think they are phenomenal people. That is a competition that everybody on our campus cares about, right? So a win there is a massive win. A win against Maryville is who's that, right? They're not sure which Maryville it is. There are 2 Maryville, institutions. One of them is in St. Louis. I think the other one is in Missouri, or I don't know where it is. So the PEC is a collection of Division I football schools that have the same interest. We're in the PEC so that we have a set schedule and a set finals, right? There are 9 schools in it this year: Michigan State, Ohio State, Kansas, Nebraska, Syracuse, Minnesota, Baylor, Utah, Boise State, right? Those are the 9 schools that are in it. We play full round robin. We play the same school through all 4 games on the same week. So we just finished our Ohio State week. We edged them in Rocket League and Overwatch. They beat us in an absolutely incredible 3-game overtime Valorant. And then we edged them last night in Smash. That's our Ohio State week. Next week is our Nebraska week. For these schools that are in the PEC, but also in like the Big Ten or the Big 12, they align those weeks with the weeks they're playing in football. So if you're Ohio State, Michigan State, your week next week is your rival week. They start on Monday with Rocket League playing each other, and often when possible we do it in person, and then on Saturdays the football game, right? So it leads across and so on campuses like ours, those are names that are meaningful. Boise State is a football blue blood, primarily. because of the famous blue turf, the wins at the Fiesta Bowl, all of those types of things. But all of the other programs are like genuine football powers, right? And I think we are too. But we're definitely the kid brother of that collection of folks. So the PEC solves the problem for us, which is we need to play opponents that our administration and our student body can recognize the value of even before they know how good they are, right? And all of these programs are really competitive. I think there's only one team this semester in the PEC, maybe two total game title teams that are undefeated. Everyone else has lost to everyone else, right? I mean, it's really competitive. And so when we come to Vegas in April for the PEC National Championships, we bring all the teams and everybody gets to play together in that space. And it's a pretty phenomenal event.
There's so much that goes into managing an esports program. How do you keep the motivation to move forward?
So, everybody who I work with in this space works incredibly hard. They're doing two jobs, at least. I mean, I think of John Price at Ohio State, Chris and Joey, who I mentioned. I think of Danny O'Connell at Kansas, doing tons of jobs. I mean, Adam Stanley at Baylor, Doug Goon at Minnesota, AJ Dimmick, who I mentioned in the very first answer. All of them doing incredible work and working really, really hard. And so I think that there's a huge benefit to having hardworking colleagues around you that you want to show up for, right? That you want to help, that you want to do more. I mean, because what we want is a strong community that supports each other. Dan Clark, Maryville, I consider just a sweet friend, and our teams compete all the time, but we are not in competition with each other, right? We are colleagues. We're fighting the same opponent, which is the time, attention, and resources of our campus, right? We are all colleagues in that. AJ and I learned that early on, or he taught me that early on, that there's no reason for us to have true competitive jealousy, but we do want our admins to, right? We want Syracuse to open a $2.7 million gaming facility and for our folks to be jealous. We want Baylor to roll out a $7 million facility, or with the Texas A&M $18 million. We want those because it creates more opportunities for our students. It sets a new bar that, programs who are in it want to try and reach. And that's our neighborhood. That may not be the case for Middle Tennessee State Esports, and that's okay. They can find their own neighborhood and thrive and survive in that one. Dan asked me a great question in September when we were all together in Syracuse for their kickoff event. He said, what do I feel my responsibility is to the greater collegiate landscape, right? And part of that's a loaded question because we have assembled football schools into a walled garden, right? And they're like, well, we want you to be able to play, Irvine Valley College, and if Irvine Valley College is the best, they should be able to beat you. I totally agree. That's what the publisher tournaments are for, right? That's what the publisher tournaments are for. For our poster that we sell advertising to support our students and scholarship, we need names that offer meaning, that elevate what we do. And for where we are, that's this group. So as my sign off, I think that the responsibility that all of us have is to make what we do on our campus so electric, so awesome, so contagious that other administrators want what we have. And for us to share openly how we got it. Spoiler, it's mostly just backbreaking, never-ending, 24-hour-a-day work. But that that we don't hide the blueprint, we share it. And as just I have to always give credit. This idea of blueprinting comes from Mark Deppy and Kurt Melcher in the very beginning. Those two were the first two that I made contact with, and my goodness, they shared everything. Business plans, proposals that they sent up their chains. They shared everything. And they set the expectation that if you have success, you share that success with every colleague who wants it. They still have to do the work. You can't do the work for them, but you can certainly help them along the way. And yeah, I guess that's it. But it's really cool what we get to do. I love this group of schools that we play. It'll probably grow. There'll probably be a couple more big schools that want to kind of come into this. But we know that with what we do, if we do it right, we elevate what people see this can be on campus, and the Middle Tennessee states of the world have a benchmark that their admin can try to climb to. That they want their own PEC. That they want their own finals at the Luxor HyperX with the Allied crew. They want that. That's what we're trying to do. Trying to build it that way by here's what it can be.